We are reviewing a book by A. American is the guy's pseudonym.
Yep.
Pseudonym name, A. American. This book is called
Going Home. It is written by a guy who lives here in Ocala, Florida.
I would give this book a 4. What would you give this book?
Book 1, a 4. He started the series off with introducing a husband who is away from his family, and he's trying to get back to his family. And
You know, a lot of times when you read books like this, you read books in a sense of like, oh my God, a nuclear fallout and everything's destroyed. And that's not what this was. There wasn't any damage. There was no bombs. There was just an EMP that took all the electricity out. And so you get to see the decline of society.
so a lot of the places, a lot of the what do you call it, the topography is what we would experience. Like, can you forage? Can you get water? All those things that, you know, if you're even a little bit of a prepper, you go, what if? And that just intrigued me right away. And the only thing that I would say knocked it down from being a 5 for me was the amount of detail that he gave, which is why I thought he would like it, because he gets into the specifics of what he has. I think the author is a prepper. So yeah.
So the main character's name is Morgan, right? Morgan. And in book 1, you have a bunch of different characters, but you have, I would say, 4 main characters. So you've got Morgan, the main guy. You've got a guy that shows up. His name is Thad. Mm-hmm. You have a gal that shows up, and I think her name is Jess or Jessie. Jess. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Sarge. And along the way, you've got a handful of different things that happen. But like Meg was saying, this guy is on a business trip up in the Panhandle, which one thing that I appreciated right out the gate is what people don't realize is they think of like Florida as flat, swampland, beachland. But as you start getting up into Florida, it's not very hilly, but you see some hills up there.
Tallahassee is... I biked it. It's a lot of hills.
Yeah, as you're moving into Georgia and the surrounding states, the topography does change quite a bit.
It's harder to put yourself in somebody's shoes when it's like, oh, they're prepping in Alaska. We don't live in Alaska. We don't take those same precautions. So it really just hit home because of the Florida element.
So anyway, so this guy gets stuck up there, has to make it home to his girls, his wife, his dogs, and he's not totally sure how that's going to happen, but he's definitely prepped for it. Morgan seems to be the type of guy that just kind of preps in a way that he's consistently thinking about it. I would have liked a little more character development when it comes to Morgan, okay? It's kind of just like, hey, this guy's driving. All of a sudden, he's not. And this is where the story starts, okay? And I could be wrong, but I don't think Morgan was in the military. I don't think he has a military background. I think he's just an average Joe that's into prepping, likes to shoot guns. So I did connect with him in that way because...
Yeah, because he had a BlackBerry and a laptop and all that.
Yeah, so this is like a business guy, which I'm a blue-collar worker. He's a white-collar worker. That's not where we connected, but where we did connect is it just seems like we're kind of like the average guy that's curious, likes to be outdoors, likes to try different things. He has a background in hunting. And then we get to his gear. And the first thing that bothers me about this character, he seems to have everything. He has a bug out bag that has night vision goggles in it that he uses often. Mm-hmm. He has...
That annoyed me a little bit.
A camp stove, which again, you can definitely have a camp stove. I just thought he had way too much gear to make the journey home possible. He does struggle in a number of ways. He's forced to kill people, which you could tell he had never had to do before. But the struggle of, like, for example, bugs. He's in the woods for a while. Mm-hmm. You're telling me he's got a bug out bag?
A little bit more
You're telling me he has a bug out bag
Especially in Florida.
with night vision goggles and he doesn't have a thermocell?
Some people love details and want to be able to picture texture of the carpet and the color of the drapes and and it's poetic to them, and that's how they feel like they walked into the story. And other people go, get to the kissing already, or get to the sex, or get to the action. They don't care about the environment. So some of this is subjective, but he definitely went over the top with explanation.
One thing that I've noticed so far in his second book is he has not done that.
He toned it down.
He's toned it down. And that could just be growing as a writer in general. Yeah, for sure. I loved that A. American did a great job at vividly but subtly, we are watching the turn of Morgan. From, man, I don't want any altercation. I don't want to have to be in conflict with anybody, but realizing pretty quickly that that's unavoidable, and people are going to force their hand to that.
Right. The one altercation he has with the family that's at his campsite that like kind of pushes their way
It's
in.
a husband and wife and some kids. Yep. And
they were pushy.
Once he flips that switch, it wasn't painted as I'm a trained assassin killer guy. It's now I have to do everything from this place, and for me to think of you as a friend,
Yeah.
you're going to have to prove that to me. At first, he's kind of like, oh man, everybody be cool. We're good. I don't want any conflict.
I love that he gave people water right off the gate. I was like, you're braver than I would in that situation, knowing how far I'd have to hike. I wouldn't want to give any of my water away. That he shared was nice.
So he was transformed in book 1 to this guy that goes, I
have to make it home.
This is how I have to
Survival.
live. It's me against you. If I have any weakness, it might mean I don't get home. And so I'm sorry. And then he gets to a place where he's not even apologizing. He's just, this is who I am now. This is who I have to be now. So I'm really interested to see what those dynamics look like. Thad, as a character, I really enjoyed, because Thad was, and he says it right out the gate, he's a black character and he's a big dude.
Intimidating.
So he's like, yeah, I get that everywhere. I'm just intimidating in general.
But he's really a sweetheart.
But he's got a soft side to him. But he's also, he'll pull the trigger on you in a controlled way that's like, this is just what I have to do. This is just, yes, I am all of this, but I have to kill you now. And I'm sorry. I feel kind of bad that I have to do it, but I'm going home. I'm getting back to my family. So that's one thing that I really liked about the book. The other thing that I really liked about the book was then it gets to a place in the book where you see them go, oh, you have some, I don't have any.
You should share.
You should share. And it's like, okay, but you didn't prep at all. You didn't care about this at all. Now that we're in this shitstorm, you care about it. I've got people I got to take care of. You don't care about them at all. Then it goes to, and this was a really interesting dynamic that I loved that A. American did. Then it goes to, well, I'm going to take what you have, which is kind of the attitude I would expect. But then those of authority say, I'm going to confiscate what you have. And you're not like me, therefore you should not have what I have. Meaning guns or ammo or whatever. Okay, well, there's people in the military that don't believe this. That believe you should be free and believe you should have these rights and believe, aren't we supposed to be fighting for these things? And so you see even a divide there. I think the other thing that I would say that I loved is the fact that he made villains out of common folk. Which, so there were multiple villains. You would see guys that you'd like, I know that guy's a villain. But then you see a lady and you're like, oh, she won't be a villain, she's sweet, and she's a villain. And so
I think the surprising one to me was how quickly the hillbilly that he ran into that tried to push his way in on the mom. And Morgan stepped in and stopped the mom from being raped, and the children were like in the closet. And I was just like, good on you, Morgan. Do whatever you gotta do.
Yeah,
take him out.
But you have to have one lead psycho.
Yeah.
That's willing to flip the switch on that and go, we're willing to see this through to the end.
And then the older couple that took Morgan in.
Yep.
I loved them too.
She was
like a sweet grandma lady, and they were used to taking care of themselves, so.
They were self-reliant.
Yep.
They were older, so they came from a time when you had to preserve, when you had to share, when you had to remember how to do some of these things. And it came in handy and they were not stressed out. Good book overall. Excited for the rest of the series. We're going to push on through both of these series, the Terminalist series as well as the Survivalist series, and we'll keep you guys up to date.